What kind of products do sell well on a porn site?
I mean, you'd be surprised. You sell differently. Like, you really have to capture somebody's attention because obviously they're busy watching something that they like that's keeping them engaged. To get them off there, you have to be super, super engaging. The adult space is a great learning ground. You get to learn so much about affiliate marketing and traffic, and you can do anything after.
Interesting. What were some of the things you learned?
Sometimes it's the boringest advice that actually works.
What are some of the best insights and learnings you got from them? Like maybe name three. That would be super valuable to our audience.
Put yourself in a position to see data because that's what's going to get you to the next level.
As a serial entrepreneur, I'm always trying to evolve. Having great conversations with other high performers is one of the best ways to grow. Not only in business, but also in spirit, health, and relationships. This is Svencast. Listen, grow, repeat. Yeah, what's up, everybody? In today's podcast, I'm excited to be able to talk to Maria Sparagis. Maria is the president of DirectPayNet, a company which helps people to get high-risk payments done. And she's the host of a YouTube channel called Uncensored Direct Marketing. That's a really cool name, by the way. Her accolades include a Bachelor of Commerce, which she followed up with a diploma in entrepreneurship and a certificate in project management at McGill University. Since then, she has had some exciting roles, including VP of Monetization at MindGeek. Through her podcast, she's picked the brains of the most notable direct response marketers in the world, and her career in the online business space includes, but is not limited to, adult content platforms like Pornhub. Welcome, Maria. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the nice introduction.
Thank you. I was always curious, being like from the non-adult space. How does this adult industry work? How do they even make money, given the fact that there is so much free content out there?
So, I mean, that's the premise of the business model is free content. So, for example, if we take a site like Pornhub or Xvideos or any of the big popular tube sites, their goal is to give you as much free content as possible, so you can so they can attract more eyeballs to their website, so they can sell advertising. So, the business model of porn is not actually to sell the porn. It's just to get people to get onto the page so they can then sell advertising to different products and services and so forth. So it's really like an ad platform more than anything.
Ah, interesting. So the porn is not the product itself.
Well, it is what gets you on there. Sort of like YouTube, right? Like on YouTube, you get eyeballs, and then it's the ads where Google and YouTube make money. So it's a similar type of business model. So it basically happened pre-2008. At that point, porn was being sold like on a membership type basis, like $30 a month, and stuff like that. Where a lot of people don't want to pay for it, they don't want to admit that they're paying for it, and so forth. So, YouTube had just come out in 2006, and obviously giving free content and attracting eyeballs and getting traffic onto a site was a really big thing. So that's, what the owners decided to do is to focus on more like a tube site, which obviously exploded because their first brand was Brazzers, which was more, just the adult side of things, the content, the paid content and so forth. And then, obviously Pornhub launched, and the rest is history. They got all the traffic, they got all that. And then they, created an ad platform where you can buy ads on these sites. And that's what ended up being the biggest revenue generator of that company.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So basically, Pornhub is like a big affiliate.
I don't know how they slice and dice the financials, but I don't think they're an affiliate. I think they just sell ads. You know what I mean? So they sell impressions, they sell that. So I don't know what kind of partnerships they have with the advertising, the people advertising on their platform, but most of it is just like paid advertising, like just like you would buy a banner on a highway or something like that. I mean, a little bit different, but well, similar concept.
It's kind of like a highway because there's like a way and there's like a potential destination for every driver. That's cool. That's very interesting. So I just find it hard to imagine, like, if someone is on a porn site to be like to get into the emotion of buying something, because in my opinion, buying is also emotional. So what kind of products do sell well on a porn site?
I mean, you'd be surprised. Like, you have to think that, Pornhub and Xvideos and all the big tube sites, they have, they're in the top 10 sites of the world. So it's not just, recluses or people who have like strange habits or anything that watch these sites. This is, just regular people that go on there and stuff like that. So there's a lot of products and services that could be sold on there, or at least, suggested for later purchase. But for example, things that did well in the past, like a while back, was like, relationship advice. So, there's a lot of guys that go on these porn sites because they have a hard time meeting a girl and stuff like that. But their ultimate goal is not just to have one night stands or whatever. Their goal is to meet a girlfriend. But they don't have confidence and so forth. So products that sell, men's confidence and get them, to come out of their shell, that does well. Anything that could be, health and beauty, right? Vanity sells because people want to look good, obviously, when they're in these, compromising positions and whatever. So, it doesn't necessarily have to be porn being sold on porn sites. There's a lot of other stuff that can be sold on there.
I see. That's interesting because dating advice was like the first product. Like I was a dentist before, and when I started with online marketing, the first thing I did was actually selling dating advice to men on how to get a girlfriend and all that good stuff. So yeah, but I haven't tried porn sites for advertising. I should have maybe. That's pretty interesting.
You have
Um,
to get somebody's attention very, very quickly. So when you were saying, just to kind of take it to the marketing side of things, is it's you sell differently. Like, you really have to capture somebody's attention, because obviously they're busy watching something that they like, that's keeping them engaged. To get them off there, you have to be super, super engaging. So like, it has to be different. Like, there was an ad a long, long time ago, from like a relationship advice kind of guru. And it was a cartoon, and
mhm.
it converted very well. And it did very well because it stuck out in the page, and it actually addressed a need from that market. So, selling on an adult site is not impossible, but you have to really get somebody to want to leave that adult site by promising something better when they go there.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I remember like in general, like the ad that sticked out to me the most that worked for my products, when I sold a weight loss advice, was a banana that would like shift its colors, like a yellow banana that would gradually, like over time, become brown. And I did that also. Did you also see that?
Yeah, I mean, like, I work a lot with health and beauty kind of merchants that sell supplements and fitness and so forth. And obviously there's Dr. Gundry, that's a very, well known personality in the U.S. For anything health and so forth. And he's famous for like the ads of like an egg, or like just random objects that you're like, "Well, how does this convert?" But yeah, it's sometimes it's we're so, a lot of marketers are so focused on being unique that the most simplest thing is what sometimes appeals to the market.
Hmm.
So yeah, like an egg or a banana or something that just like, oh, why is that happening? Curiosity effect.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was brilliant. I love. Till today, I love this banana ad that where the banana turns from yellow to brown. It's just great. So if you think like how far did you analyze, like how far, like how professional are these porn website companies? Are they like, are they like really sophisticated, analyzing their user data and analyzing their users? How would you like if you compare it to other types of businesses? What's your impression there?
Well, I mean, okay, so just to clarify, I actually worked for a company called Mansev that was bought out by various parties that became eventually MindGeek. So I don't know like their internal what they're doing now. I haven't worked there for over 10, 11 years at this point. So I was really there at the early days. when nobody wanted to give us a merchant account and nobody wanted to work with us, and there was like 10 people there, so it was really like the underground operation. So the early 2005, 2006, 2007, and so forth. So right now what they're doing, I can't really comment, but I can say obviously that they're a very large company and they do have a lot of employees that have a lot of experience in different things. So I'm fairly confident that they have analytics and a lot of measures to track whatever they need to track, and if I go back to like my experience and when we started, when the company started, when I was there and so forth, I wouldn't say that we were the most sophisticated. And obviously the 10 years ago doesn't sound that long, but it was very long on an internet marketing kind of speak. And at that point, we did some very simple things, like, a lot about affiliates, but like one of the key successes that we had was that we always paid affiliates on time, which was kind of like a thing in the adult space in like 2005, 2006, 2007. A lot of the affiliates would complain that they wouldn't get their checks on time. So I made it a goal that they had their checks on the 15th and the 30th every month. Like, so even if I wasn't giving them the best split, even if I wasn't giving them, everything that everybody else was promising, they knew they had that paycheck every month. So it was, that was a big game changer. Whereas now I think merchants and anybody in the industry knows that if you don't pay your affiliates on time, they're going away, but back then it was not a big thing. So, I mean, in terms of analytics and like what we did, I think we were very avant-garde, which is why the company became what it became. It was, when I started, we were a bunch of 20-year-olds, like straight out of school, and we just wanted to make money, and we were testing everything. It was like, just add this, let's see what happens. So there was like not a lot of risk at that point. Like, and I'm talking, when I say add this, I never dealt with anything content related. That wasn't my job. I was more on the back end of things, like testing upsells, removing upsells, cross sales, all that fun stuff. So everything on the back end. And we created a lot of things that are being done today. Like we were probably one of the first websites that did a cross sale to another external provider. I did something that was like pretty interesting, was when somebody wanted to cancel, I did a cancel cross sale. So we were losing that customer and we're like, hey, you want to go to program ABC? And people are like, why, are you crazy? I'm like, well, they're going to leave us anyway. Let's make $30. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why not? So sell them to another porn site, and then that porn site we have an exchange. So when they cancel their, hey, you want to go back to browsers, and just bounce the customer back and forth, So it was, we tested so many of these things. And on the checkout page, which was like one of the biggest things like that I worked on, it was like a science for me, like placing things, colors, pictures, and this was like 2007, right? It wasn't as easy as now to make things work properly, but it was very, very important. And obviously with the amount of traffic that was coming into the sites and so forth, it was game changers of like a couple of percent back and forth by like, okay. So one thing that I did, and I remember in 2007 very clearly, that was a game changer, is we tested having a porn image on the checkout page versus a non-porn image, like a white page with just like credit card information. And the other one, how when somebody goes onto a website, they say you have to keep the user experience, right? Like you have to, if you're selling supplements, you're like, you keep hand holding the customer saying, oh yeah, you're going to lose tons of weight. And on the checkout page, you keep putting like statements and things to get them to lose weight. Well, at that point, then the market changes. Obviously, these are all things that you have to test. At that point, when we tested it, the blank page that looked like a bank's page worked way better, because when you put a porn image, it doesn't instill trust in the person to give their financial information.
Yeah.
So we split test that. I was like, why is this ugly white page doing better than the page with the hot girl and this and that? And it was like, people don't trust porn to put their credit card information. You know what I mean? So, stuff like that, like was things that, because we were, especially in those years, lean and mean, we were able to test all this stuff and gain market share quite quickly. And like I said, it was the timing, it was the time to do that stuff. Now, obviously things changed. Now when, merchants that work with me or, my company Direct Painted, they ask these things, I tell them, just copy the big guys.
Hmm.
And they laugh because they're like, why? I'm like, because they put millions of dollars to test these things. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
don't need to try to reinvent the wheel. If Amazon's doing something, do it, on their
Yeah.
checkout. They know what's happening. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. This is like when people ask me how they should start an online business, I would always say, hey, find someone like that is like usually those like a lot of German people ask me. I usually say, look at the US market, find someone who is kind of in your industry, and then basically just do what they do, like with your own angle, with your own twist, but
yeah.
don't change too many things, especially not in the marketing, because it might be like they put probably they put a lot of money and time and energy into split testing those things and figuring them out, and you could just go and start there. Whereas a lot of people who start, they just want to come up with everything themselves, and that's pretty costly and inefficient, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with you. And the interesting thing that you mentioned is like the US is almost a testing ground for Europeans. Everything kind of in direct response really comes out in the US. So if you look at the main competitors, you get, I never, don't copy people's copy, don't rip people's offers
Yeah.
off. But like on the checkout page and all that, like whatever they're doing, that works. So I completely agree with you. Sometimes it's like the boringest advice that actually works.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that's why I said with your own angle, with your own twist. Like if you're like, for example, a German fitness trainer, you cannot just copy everything from let's say someone from the US who's doing it their way. You have to have your own twist, and you have to it has to accustom to like the German audience, etc., etc. But a lot of things work. Like for example, less distraction on the sales page is better than a lot of distraction. Less links are better than more links, etc., etc. Like these basic things, or like the sub headline is the most important. Is more important than your company name or your product name or something. These things can be also applied in my experience there. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, how did you even get to work in that industry?
It's every good story. It always starts out by accident. So, I didn't graduate university and was like, hey, I'm taking over the adult entertainment industry. I actually was friends with one of the owners. So we were childhood friends, and he was starting to be an affiliate in the space, and we were like really young. We were in our early 20s, and I really wanted to start working in the online world. I know it might just as an FYI and a side parentheses, it sounds a little bit like I'm a dinosaur, but I do feel a bit like, because if you started online in like the early 2000s, it's a very different world than it is today. It's like
Yeah.
completely different, So when I finished university, it was like, okay, well, I want to work on the internet. It was like, what? Who wants to do that? Why? Why would you want to work? Like now, it's like not a question, but back then it was like, why don't you just get a job at like TELUS or a phone company or something? So I just wanted to kind of get into the online world. It was very difficult because I didn't really have any contacts, any connections. So my friend was kind of doing some affiliate work in the adult space and making some interesting money. So I said, like, let me help you out. Let's see like what we can do. So they already had like a small infrastructure. There were like maybe 7 or 8 guys. And they wanted to bring me on because they wanted a girl.
Hmm.
And my friend's like, yeah, you could do it, because they wanted to hire staff and stuff like that because they started making more money. But people would hang up in his face because as soon as he would say porn company, people were like, hang up. So he figured it would be a little bit more legitimized. If a woman called, it's a little bit softer. It's easier to try to get people. And I had studied in IT, so I was able to kind of make my way around developers and stuff like that and hire. So my first role when I started was HR because I was hiring people.
Mm.
Just to kind of get started and stuff like that. So it was really by accident because I wanted to work in the online space. I got a computer in like 1993. I was always just fascinated. I got like a little MacBook when I was in elementary school, the Apple, and I just always wanted to work in computers. I used to, steal internet when in the mid 90s when my parents didn't want to pay for it. And so it was just by accident. And the opportunity came up that, thankfully my friend and his partners were making some money. And they can pay me a small salary at that point, and it just kind of helped propel my career. After I learned that, it was just the adult space is a great learning ground. You get to learn so much about affiliate marketing and traffic and all that. You can do anything after.
Interesting. What were some of the things you learned?
So, I mean, first, I learned how to hire people. I was not in HR, so it was like it was like learning how to have enough soft skills to get people not to hang up in my face when I told them like to be a developer for a porn company. That was like a really big challenge because a lot of people would be like, "What do you guys do?" And I was like, and then a lot would hang up. So I got really, really good at hiring developers for this type of space. But my first role, like officially, was really the affiliate manager. So I actually managed Jug Cash, which was that was what the affiliate program was called. And I just kind of took a very business approach to affiliate marketing, which was, payouts on time, getting affiliates like creatives, like giving them like really, really good creatives so they can promote us. We started affiliate promos in that space. We did a $250 payout day, like 250 PPS, so pay per sale. And we did some pretty genius stuff. I wouldn't say that was our shining moment, because then it created wars. You know what I mean? Like when you do an affiliate contest and the other guy does an affiliate, and then it just never ends. But one thing that I have to say about affiliate contests that really worked is we always launched them on Friday. And then we would switch it off on Saturday morning, but affiliates obviously sometimes would be, with their families and not really interested in working. So then we'd get the residual 3 days of the traffic from there. So, little tricks like that, don't start an affiliate promo Monday, start it Friday, just you get the weekend traffic. And then after the affiliate marketing, really it was, I was given a 2-week project. It was like, hey, we were paying, 12 to 15% for payment processing plus 10% reserves. So for every dollar that we were getting, 25% was gone before it even came to our pockets. So it was like, what is this? There must be a better way. So the owner of the company came to me and said, threw some papers on my desk, said, I don't know, is there anything you can think of here? Do a little bit of research and whatever. I'll say, okay, like whatever. So I started going kind of down the rabbit hole of like, what is a merchant account? I had no idea like of any of this space. So like, what's a merchant account? How do you set it up? What do you need? And all that. And then we got actually at that point, one of the first merchant accounts that we had gotten was with a German bank. Funny enough, because they were kind of avant-garde and they were willing to support this industry. And from there, obviously more banks got added and all this stuff. But I really focused from that point forward on merchant accounts, saving money, currency conversion. So we had traffic, let's say in Europe, in US, in Canada, and all these different places. So converting the currency at opportune times to get the most, bang for our buck. Conversions from the different countries, like, I'm not going to get super payment processing 101, but it is my favorite topic. But, if you have a German merchant account and you're charging US customers, your conversions are never going to be as good as your domestic. So domestic. So trying to kind of route the traffic intelligently. And also, as a company, you can't have a subsidiary in every country. So how to maximize kind of the coverage, getting the lowest rates, because domestic transactions cost less. How to get the maximum conversions. So which bank works best with this country and that country and so forth. So it was just I'm a little bit of like a math geek. That was like my favorite thing, is like math, numbers, and all that. So that's really what kind of engulfed me there for a couple of years before I left.
Interesting. Yeah. So I think math is really the key to marketing. Like, because it's at the end of the day, it's all about numbers and really, like understanding the context of those numbers and understanding, like also psychology, I would say. So because you try to make sense of the numbers you're seeing, and so that you can learn, just as you said, okay, some banks work better here, or this porn picture doesn't work on the checkout page, etc. These are also psychology related things. I'm very interested though in the HR of that, because like my experience with developers and hiring developers, I also am very involved with that, being a tech company, um, is like they have very, very high standards about like the company and the reputation of the company, etc., which makes sense. How did you get around that? Because I think it's totally difficult, I imagine.
Well, I mean, again, when I did it, it was a while ago. So there was, it wasn't that there was less opportunities; there was different opportunities back then. So for me personally, I had presented it as something very exciting because it was. I was very excited when I was working there because we were doing so many things that like nobody understood. Uh, now it's a little bit more common practice in direct marketing for people to understand these things, but back then it was like, "What? You're selling traffic? What are you talking about? How's that work?" And so it was more. Obviously, we got younger developers, the younger
Mhm.
ones, and you pay them more. So, you pay them 10-15% more than what the market commands. They're younger, so they have less experience. And, you strategically use certain recruiters that, could also do the job. So that was, the kind of three-pronged approach to that. But then, you know, um, I do this with my company too. It's like selling the dream. I'm not a huge company. There's other payments companies people can go work for and stuff like that. So it's just about kind of sharing a vision and sharing. We used to call it back then that is selling the dream of like, all this stuff that we're going to create and what we're going to do. And hopefully you find people that are passionate enough to come on board.
Hmm. And so you mean like the selling point is them to be passionate about all these new technology things? Is
Yes.
that the angle? Because like what I like to say, like DigiStore 24, we're selling information products that make the world a better place because we're giving education to people that's relevant, as opposed to the stuff they learn at school or at university that might not be relevant, maybe just relevant for their exam or for some test. But yeah, so this is I feel like one thing that's very important to them. But yeah, like I really respect your versatility. Like like how how like this is like for me a typical trait of an entrepreneur, that you're basically okay with working in all business spaces. How did you become an entrepreneur? Like how how did you develop that mindset that you're okay with? Okay, I work in HR, I work in affiliate marketing, I work in on the more on the tech side. Um, how does it work?
Well, I just like to this day, I kind of like new challenges, everything. Like I launched my podcast just because I was like, well, I haven't done anything new in a while. Let me kind of learn the ins and outs of YouTube and try to help people. My goal is obviously on my podcast to help people because I give a lot of information on how to do things and how to change things, and it's all free and stuff like that. So, how maybe this is a bit of a funny story, but I come from a family of immigrants. So my parents immigrated to Canada, and they didn't speak English or French, which is the local language here in Quebec. And I was relied upon to make a lot of decisions from a very young age and to help my parents kind of manage their business. So, like when the tax man would call, 13-year-old Maria would
Mm.
take the phone and try to figure it out and help my parents and so forth. And, my mom's a pretty versatile person. She'd be in the kitchen and doing that. And this is a long time ago. And, my parents didn't have babysitters, didn't have people. So I was just always at the restaurant with my parents and I would just do stuff with them. And I just saw like we had to move fast. It was like, okay, we have to do this, go there, do this. And it just kind of became part of my upbringing. And then when I started my career, it was really just, I just wanted to do everything. I just kind of maybe it's a little bit of a character trait. I just like to know everything about everything. I want to ask people everything when, like the podcast was a passion project because I like to learn. So the best
Mm.
way is, getting somebody on my show and then being able, just like you to ask them all about like different things that I don't know about. So that's just basically when I started my company. direct pay net, I didn't want to just sell merchant accounts for just adult or just this. So every time we get a new lead, it's like, sometimes like, somebody in my team will come to me as a lead that doesn't do much volume, doesn't do anything, but it's like they've never seen this product. And I'm like, what is that? How do you sell this? What is, different? Like we got just recently something that I was like, on a compliance standpoint and on a liability standpoint, I was just amazed because I've been doing this for 15 years and I just had no idea how this person was doing this. It had to do with like drug testing. So I had to do all this research. This was not a very big lead, but it just came to me because, my team knows that I like these like interesting things. And I just did all this research on like the FTC website, Legit Script and all these like kind of medical things and whatever, just to figure out like, how can you legally sell this without liability of, somebody doing something wrong with it and so forth. So it's just, I guess, a little bit my nature and a little bit my upbringing.
Interesting. Yeah, I can relate to that because I feel like when you're in a small company as an employee or when you're starting a business, then basically you're in Germany, you say the girl for everything. Mädchen für alles. You're like, you have to do everything. Like there is no task that's kind of not yours. So, if you look at that you like had to do a lot of things, you described that you didn't have like very specialized people in the beginning of your career. In this case, in the adult space, because it was like your early career. Like in retrospect, like what would you have done differently, like given the knowledge you have now?
You mean like in my career right now,
Yeah.
what I would have done differently? So I left that company in, late 2009, the adult company, because they were the initial owners, my friends and the people that I knew were selling the company. So like I said, I haven't worked there in a long time and I don't really know what the new owners do and stuff like that. So I decided to exit. And when I exited, I didn't really have a plan. I just knew that I didn't want to continue working for a new group and kind of start the whole process. It was becoming a little bit more corporate, obviously, because the size was becoming a lot larger as a company. And I like that small company kind of like, I don't have to talk to 10 people. I can just flip a switch. And so I was like, okay, well, obviously I need to do something either in a small company or I need to do something by myself because I don't enjoy hierarchy and big kind of company feel. So I left the company and I went to Europe for 3 months. Just, I don't know. I figured maybe it would bring me some clarity. It didn't. It brought me back broke. I went to Germany. Actually, I was in Berlin for a while. I partied a lot and, I was in UK for a bit. And then I came back. I was like, I have no job and now I have a lot of debt. So I got to figure something out. So I just kind of said, well, let me just try to sell people merchant accounts because that's what I know how to do. And I have some connections and so forth. And that's how it all got started. One thing that I would have done differently, is I would have delegated more often, faster. Like I would have hired a team faster. I would have gotten more people on board faster and been less. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to like work. So especially the first 3 years, it was like, no, you can't do this. Don't do it like that. Don't do it like that. And it was just like a little bit of micromanagement, not because I didn't want to grow, because I was always worried about making a mistake and doing something wrong. And then the customers not wanting to work with me. So it prevented me to scale at the size that maybe I should have been now. But, I learned a bit later, but now we're doing better. When I first started my company, I always put myself in a position to be in the room with the important people, by never saying no. Like, I mean, obviously you have to set boundaries to certain things, but like, the story of like, I actually started making money around 18 months after I started my company. I was on my last leg. It's always like the famous story. I was literally like, I was running away from my landlord because I didn't have any money to pay my rent that month. I was like, oh my God, I'm so screwed. But I was just like, I feel it. It's happening. But then people around you start not believing in your dream. They're like, you've been kind of doing this for a while and it's not, you got to pay your rent and stuff. I'm like, no. I even went so far as to like apply to the Starbucks in front of my house just so I can work like 15, 20 hours so I can make enough money to pay my rent so I can continue kind of working. Thankfully that month, everything came together. It was very random. Like I was on a tool called Domain Tools to try to figure out who were the best marketers in the health space in Europe. Because the US market was starting, now it's oversaturated with merchant account providers, but back then it was the place where everybody. So I said, well, why don't I try the UK? It's a little bit different. It's newer. People don't know much about high risk merchant accounts. So I got some relationships there set up. And then I went on Domain Tools and I looked at the top ranking sites and I was just like emailing them, calling them. And then finally somebody said yes. They said yes. It was somebody from the UK said he was selling like a weight loss tea. And he wrote to me and said, okay, he goes, are you in the States? I said, Canada. He goes, I'm going to be in New York next week. Let's meet up in person. And if I like you, you can get me a merchant account. And I'm just like sitting there thinking, I'm like, I just told him I'm Canadian. Like, I'm not American and I don't live in the US. So he was going to New York. I'm like, I don't live in New York. I live in Montreal. But I said, yeah, sure. No problem. And I took my car because it's a 6-hour drive to New York from Montreal. And I didn't have money for a flight. And I just drove to New York and I met up with him and he gave me the contract.
Awesome.
And then he liked me so much. He invited me to go to this ad agency he was working with in New York. He said, oh, I have these meetings with like an affiliate agency. You know a lot about affiliates. Why don't you just come and listen in? I said, sure. Okay. I went to the meeting. I'm like, I barely know this guy. He's telling me everything about his business, but I guess I have a trustworthy face. We're talking to his media guys. And as we're walking in the hallway, one guy that was in the meeting was seeing another client and he goes to him, hey, you should work with Maria. She knows a lot of stuff about merchant accounts. Ends up that guy he was talking to was Shoe Money, who was at the time the biggest biz op person in the industry. I had no idea. And I made a connection with him. And then all kind of mushroomed from there, but it was just like being in the right place and at the right time. I literally met him and the guy said I was cool. Shoe Money liked me and he hired me. So I got 2 contracts from that trip.
That's so awesome. That really shows that you sometimes just have to take chances and just show up.
Show up. There you go.
Show up. Like who says that? Grant Cardone likes to say that. You gotta show up. Show up. That's really cool. Yes, it's really like just take the chance and do it. I'm also, a lot of people can't do it. A lot of people are like very doubtful and very hesitant. It seems like everything comes naturally to you. At least it sounds like that. Do you have like, have you always been like that, or is it something that you just learned?
No, I mean, I when I post a video, like let's say a story, I'll probably record it like 12 times before I post because I'm like, no, this bad angle, bad this, no, I shouldn't say that and whatever. So I think I just, I question myself just as much as everybody else. Like there's always that, like when you're in a room with somebody who's very, very successful or, like I work with, some fairly large merchants, and I'm still intimidated by them. I'm still like, I don't know, who am I to like talk to this person and that person. And I feel some intimidation at times, but at the end of the day, I always kind of remember that we're all, I always come from a good intention. You know what I mean? Like I'm never there to stiff anybody or make them feel bad about themselves or anything like that. And I try to display that. That's like one kind of thing about my confidence is I always try to listen to everybody and I hope people do the same. And if I feel like I'm not being appreciated somewhere or whatever, I usually stay quiet. And then that way nobody can say anything about me, good or bad. Right. So, I was a fat kid, to be honest. So I was never very confident. I was pretty fat when I was a teenager and stuff like that. So I never got much attention. My mom to this day says that was probably one of the best things that happened to me because I was always reading and studying because I had nothing else to do. So I said, you know what, everything, it's a happenstance, as we say, it just happens and then it leads you to a path. So you just kind of, go with it. I always have a goal of what I want to do. I want to get somewhere, but I try not to plan too much. So it sounds more natural and it sounds more confident.
Cool. Given the fact that you have like met with so many people, like OGs, and what I mean OGs, like those people like Shoe Money. What are some of the best insights and learnings you got from them? Like
Oh, wow.
maybe name three. That would be super valuable to our audience here.
Um, I mean, are we talking business wise, or are we talking
Business.
like business wise? I mean, the number one thing is, and I see this from all the marketers that I work with, is just do what works.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're selling, weight loss supplements and that's what works, don't start selling CBD oil. Focus on your
Mm-hmm.
product, focus on what you're doing, come up with different hooks and stuff like that for your product until you can't make it work. I mean, a lot of times we're, avoid they call it shiny object syndrome. Oh, that, like, so I guess the first lesson business wise is really focus. And I see that on all the high level entrepreneurs that I work with, their time is super valuable, and they laser focus on one goal and they kill it. So they're good at this part, and then they just focus. So that's one of my big things. My second biggest kind of business advice is really network.
Mm-hmm.
um, you know Now I guess with COVID it's a little bit more difficult, and we're doing stuff a lot of virtually, which kind of stinks in my opinion. But when I was, starting my career, especially, like, I went to probably 4 or 5 different conferences per year.
Mm-hmm.
And I would talk to people. I would just, I was so, I would go alone. Okay. So already there,
Mm-hmm.
you're going into a room by yourself. You don't know anybody. You're going to a conference. There's 5,000 people there. So I made it a goal to speak to 10 people per day. 10
Mm-hmm.
new people. So I would literally have like an agenda and be like, from 9 to noon. I sound like a super like numbers geek or whatever, but like
No,
at
it's
9 to noon,
great.
I'm going to speak to 3 people. This time I'm going to speak to another 4 people. And then I'm going to speak. So my goal was always to speak to 10 new people. And I figured 1 out of the 10 would be somebody that I would be able to keep a connection with because we have things in common. Or sometimes it was just like, one of my first, 5 clients, I guess, we were waiting in line to have, like at Affiliate Summit, and he was just like right next to me, and I was like, you know what, he's going to be number 3 today. I'm going to talk to him. So I turn around, hey, how's it going? We start talking. Like, I went to his wedding last summer. You know
Mm.
what I mean? We met in line, we did business, we worked together, and now we're really good friends because I really like him and I really like, hanging out and stuff like that. So kind of be in the right place and grow your network, and don't underestimate, how much your network can bring you. But don't expect it either. That would be, a
Mm-hmm.
big thing. And then lastly, don't be afraid. Try something new. The worst you can do is not make any money. You know what I mean? And then you move on. We were talking earlier about the crypto space.
Yeah.
In 2013, I was the first woman to speak at a crypto conference in New York City. Uh,
Wow.
so I just kind of started reading about it, and so forth. And I was following CoinDesk and, all the popular magazines and so forth.
Mm.
And I got into like I call it Twitter relationship with a couple of people that were in the space, and we would kind of chat and whatever. And I got an invitation because I had somebody on CoinDesk wanted to interview me about like the adult industry and
Mm.
crypto and what my thoughts were. And this is like 2013. Nobody gave a shit about what crypto was or what was doing. I was
Mm.
like, yeah, I have a couple of opinions on it. I'll be in your interview. Great. He ended up, putting that article on CoinDesk. It ended up kind of mushrooming into like a lot of different news articles. People, like, I was named like top 40 women in Bitcoin. I was like, I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
this is, but okay. And then I just got an invitation to speak at a conference because it ends up that one of the reporters worked for a big magazine in New York, a fintech magazine. It was called American Banker. He really liked, my take on things. And then
Mm.
they started inviting me to all these different conferences to talk about like high risk industries and how crypto can adapt to these industries. So
That's
take
pretty
chances.
awesome. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you gotta, you know that movie with Jim Carrey where he had to say yes always. Like, yeah, become a
Yes.
yes
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
You cannot say no. You always has to say yes. Yeah,
I've
but
become a little bit better with guarding my time now, but
yeah.
yes, I do agree.
Yeah, it's this is the hard thing about business and life, to find that fine line where it makes sense to say yes and where it makes sense to say no. For example, for a long time, I have refused to really dig into crypto because I was like, okay, maybe that's just a distraction. I know that it creates a lot of wealth for a lot of people's. Like, I even have like close friends who have like a 3-digit million wealth because they engaged with crypto very early, and they own thousands and thousands or 10,000s of Bitcoin or something. But still, I was like, no, I need to focus on my space. But like by now, I say, okay, it's everything with Bitcoin and crypto and NFTs is so relevant. I also like started to dig into that with a lot of fun. But yeah, there's always that danger of like losing the focus. That's like my biggest fear. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to lose my focus. I want to do what works. And usually, but the problem is usually things that have worked in the past might not be the things that will work in the future. So you also you have to, especially being a technology company, you have to look at what's going on and dig around and feel like you're losing a lot of time or wasting a lot of time. But I still think you kind of have to do it, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, you guys are in the perfect position. You know, you like similar to my company, but you guys obviously on a larger scale, you get to work with merchants in Europe and in the US and stuff like that. So, you know, seeing it's a unique position. You know what I mean? When you're
Yeah.
working on your one business, like you're selling supplements or you're selling this, it's one lane. When you're in a company like yours, you have like, you know, 1,000 lanes because you're almost
Yeah.
like a small partner in everybody's business. So you get to see what works everywhere. So, you know, I think on a positive side, for you and I, given that we work in an industry where we touch on a lot of different industries, we get that lesson a little bit faster. We could see what works a little bit faster because we see numbers, right? So that's, you know, put
Absolutely.
yourself in a position to see data because that's what's going to get you to the next level.
Maria, thank you for all that information. If someone wants to reach out to you or find out more about you, how can they reach you the best?
So my podcast definitely is a good resource. It's called Uncensored Direct Marketing. You can type that out, or my name, Maria Sparagis, and on YouTube or Apple Podcasts. So that's one way if you want to listen to more content. My company's name is Direct PayNet. So just directpaynet.com if you want more information, products and services. And I'm on every social media platform. So you can find me there as well.
Maria, thank you so much. I enjoyed it a lot, and I'm already looking forward to meet you in person and and our next conversation. Thank
For
you.
sure. Thank you. Thank you for your time. It was a nice conversation. Really enjoyed it.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and never miss an episode of Svencast again.